Donald Trump continues to go after who he considers to be his political targets, this time in a grand jury proceeding presided over by, get ready everybody, Aileen Cannon. Yes, the Mar-a-Lago judge that Donald Trump loves. He's got his private law firm, which is the Department of Justice, led by all of his former criminal defense lawyers, and he's got his private judge, Judge Cannon. When in doubt, go down to the Southern District of Florida, try to get it into the Fort Pierce Division where there's just one judge, and open grand jury proceedings there. How else can you explain why Jason Redding Quinones, who is the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, who sits in Miami, why he's driving 90 miles north to go to the outer boundaries, upper hinterlands of the Southern District of Florida just to get particularly and select and forum shop to get Judge Cannon. And now we understand there's 130 subpoenas that have been issued, including to James Comey, the former FBI director. This is just another version, frankly, of a civil lawsuit that Donald Trump brought against many of the same people or entities, claiming that there was a grand conspiracy to try to bring him down. By the way, he won that election in 2016. Oh, but his civil rights have been violated. So he brought this major lawsuit against the Democratic Party, people in the Obama administration, and other people, alleging that this Steele dossier, created by now a discredited researcher trying to put the pieces together between Russia and Donald Trump, was improperly used by the CIA and the FBI and James Comey to embarrass Donald Trump and violate his civil rights. That case civilly was tossed by Judge Middlebrooks as being nothing more than a political screed masquerading as a lawsuit. Fast forward, Donald Trump gets back in power, brings all of his criminal defense lawyers into the Department of Justice, where they are no longer independent law enforcement agents, but they are Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyers now on our company dime. Now we're paying for them. And so he looks around, he appoints a U.S. attorney in my hometown here in Miami, Jason Redding Quinones, who is MAGA, who used to be on the Miami-Dade Circuit Court bench, make him the U.S. attorney. And then what does he do? He looks around for places that are friendly to Donald Trump and judges that are friendly to Donald Trump and tries to create a grand conspiracy investigation. He said people in his own office quit and or refuse to work on this because it's so scurrilous and scandalous and has no merit. That hasn't stopped Aileen Cannon. Now, judges rarely intervene in grand jury proceedings until there's a motion before them to quash a subpoena. So right now, Cannon is on the sidelines. But John Brennan used to be the head of the CIA, subpoenaed. James Comey subpoenaed, former FBI director. If I'm him, I'd take the fifth because he's already been, I would not testify. Take a walk down Fifth Avenue. Why would he incriminate himself? He was just the subject of a manufactured criminal case against him for purportedly lying to Congress back in 2020 on something unrelated. Why would he ever willingly testify to the grand jury and on a grand jury subpoena? But that hasn't stopped Redding Quinones from issuing these 130 subpoenas, all within the backdrop of a compliant federal judge in Judge Cannon. Why else? If he had any confidence in his case, he'd bring it right across the street in the Southern District of Florida, Miami division. Let Judge Altanaga, let one of the judges in Miami handle it. I can think of a half a dozen that would be perfect for it. Oh no. We got to run and go find Judge Cannon, right? All right, let's take a quick pause because we need to talk about something that honestly affects all of us more than we think. Your online privacy. You ever search for one thing and suddenly every ad feels like it's reading your mind? Yeah, that's not a coincidence. That's why I've been using Surfshark VPN. Surfshark creates a secure encrypted connection for everything you do online, so your data stays private. I use it all the time, especially when I'm on public Wi-Fi at airports or cafes, because those networks are easy targets, and Surfshark keeps everything locked down. And one thing I really like is that it works on unlimited devices. So your phone, your laptop, your smart TV, everything is covered with just one account. Plus, they have a strict no logs policy. So what you do online stays your business. They also have Surfshark Alert, which lets you know if your email or passwords show up in a data breach, which is something I definitely want to know about immediately. Secure your privacy with Surfshark. It's completely risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to surfshark.com/legalaf or use code legalaf at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. That link and code are also in the show notes. Now let's talk about the underlying case for a minute, shall we? There was a Senate bipartisan committee in the Intelligence Committee that issued a report back in April of 2020 that completely cleared the intelligence community of any wrongdoing. In fact, the Senate determined, a bipartisan committee, including our Secretary of State now, Marco Rubio, on that committee, concluded that the Russians did interfere with the 2016 election. They did sabotage Hillary Clinton, and they did want Donald Trump to win. That is received wisdom. That is done. That is an immutable fact that Donald Trump is trying to prosecute people because the intelligence community issued a report in 2020 that did not rely on the discredited Steele dossier, but rendered its own conclusions that were reinforced by the Senate bipartisan intelligence community. How is that a criminal case? That's a bad faith prosecution by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of Florida. Plain and simple. No other way to call it. And they're trying to put lipstick on this pig by bringing it up to a judge that they think will give him a favorable outcome in Judge Cannon. And she's allowing herself to be used because she could recuse herself. She could say, you know what? It looks like forum shopping to me. I just handled the case of Jack Smith and special counsel. I just handled the case of the would-be assassin for Donald Trump. I'm getting all the Trump cases. It looks bad. I'm going to step down and let it rotate out to Judge Rosenberg or Judge Middlebrooks in West Palm Beach or something like that. Oh no, she stays in all these cases. You know, she's the one that declared first time in 200 years that a special prosecutor, special counsel appointed by the Attorney General to investigate independently from the Department of Justice something was improperly appointed because it wasn't confirmed by the U.S. Senate. We've never had a special counsel in the history of our jurisprudence ever have to go through a Senate confirmation process. None of Donald Trump's special prosecutors went through a Senate confirmation process. Not John Durham, who I just talked about, who refused to prosecute anybody in the Obama administration for these crimes that were alleged now. Not Mueller, not anybody, not Jaworski, the Watergate prosecutor, nobody. But she not only kicked out Jack Smith, but she kicked out his indictment and said the whole thing was illegal and unconstitutional. Now, the appeal never happened because Donald Trump got back into power, had his Department of Justice take over control of the case and effectively dismiss the case. That's why there's no appeal up to the United States Supreme Court. But this has already been vetted by multiple judges. This has already been vetted by the Senate intelligence community. And yet Cannon sits idly by. Now, if I'm Comey and I'm Brennan, the CIA director, I move to quash these subpoenas and get this up to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals as quickly as possible. I mean, there's no other way around it. If you're just going to wait for, you know what's going to happen, leaving it in the hands of Cannon. So what we need to do, frankly, is to continue to pressure and to expose, which we're doing here on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch Network, expose what's happening down in the Southern District of Florida with Donald Trump handpicking his own prosecutor, handpicking his own judge, with his criminal defense lawyers in the Department of Justice going after his political enemies. And it's got to stop. It's got to end. The retaliation campaign has to end. Now, the way they're trying to work around it, because the statute of limitations on matters back to 2016 has already run on cases. You got to bring most crimes, not all, 5-year statute of limitations from the 5 years from when it occurred. But they're arguing it's some sort of conspiracy, and therefore the conspiracy kept going beyond 2016, meaning they think the conspiracy kept going into 2021, right? I don't know how that happened. The cover-up of the conspiracy, I guess, continued, and therefore that restarts the statute of limitations clock to allow them to go after it, because this is a stale prosecution in which they're getting grand jury subpoenas issued by the prosecutors with a judge who's just turned a blind eye. It's not right. It's not right. And we'll continue to call it out. I'm glad you're here on Legal AF and MeidasTouch. Hit the MeidasTouch subscribe button. Come over to Legal AF YouTube, do the exact same thing, and join me on Legal AF Substack for regular live reporting. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.